start this recording and get us kicked off. There might be another panelist who joins us during these introductions, but as a formal introduction, thank you both for spending your potentially lunch hour volunteering to do this. So it is really appreciated. You could be doing a million other things and you're choosing to say yes to this, and so it is very appreciated. For those of you who I haven't met, I'm Cheryl Ratliano. I'm an associate director with Market Readiness and Employment, mostly for the Masters of Management program. And today we should have three panelists. What we will start off with initially is sort of the bio. Some call elevator pitch, some call tell me about yourself. And so if you want to give just a general background, where you are, where you've been, and then we'll go in more detail after that.
Molly, want to do ladies first?
Okay, sure. Thank you. Hi, everyone. My name is Molly Leonard. I graduated from the MSN program in 2019. So I've been in the working world almost 5 years now. Before MSM, I went to Wofford College, which is a small liberal arts school. I majored in humanities and Spanish during my time there. So I was a great candidate and great pair for the MSM program, kind of pairing the liberal arts background with the desire to go into the business world. And I benefited a lot from the coursework. My first job out of the MSM program, I was a recruiting coordinator at Bank of America, which was a great first position for me. I was there for about 2 years. I really gained a lot of exposure to how HR works in a big organization, even though I was really just on one small team of, an HR organization of thousands of people. So I handled campus recruiting, like event planning, career fairs, networking events, and did a lot of engagement with students, which was really, really a great place to start. And then in my current job, I really wanted to move into a little more of an HR generalist role. So I was looking, to not be quite as siloed like I was at the bank. I wanted to wear a few more hats and kind of expand out of the recruiting world. So now I've been with Millennium Advisors for about 2.5 years. We are a fixed income bond trading firm in Charlotte, North Carolina. We have about 100 employees globally now, with the majority in Charlotte. So I handle everything now from recruiting to benefits to training and everything in between. And I've really enjoyed this shift. So that's where I am.
Great. And I'll go next. And I guess, SJ, if you want to go after me. So I'm really excited to have this opportunity to kind of give back. I graduated out of the Charlotte MBA program. It was an executive program, so I'm really dating myself here, but that was in 2010. And I've been in HR my whole career, and I graduated from Emory University in 1995. So you can do the math there on how long I've been in HR. So I've seen a lot, done a lot, and been a lot of places. Right now I'm in Charlotte, North Carolina, and I work fully remote. Which I think is one of the new trends happening in the world work these days. But I started my career in consulting, a company called the Hay Group, and now it's part of Korn Ferry. And that was doing primarily compensation consulting and then behavioral competency work. Went into compensation more full-time with an industrial services firm down in Columbia, South Carolina. Came back to Charlotte, was in financial services for 10 years, what was First Union, Wachovia, Wells Fargo. But I was in compensation, HR business partner, HR project management, and then helped stand up our workforce analytics function. Then went to TIAA. Some of you know that firm, but it's financial services primarily for universities. So I was in a diversity and inclusion role, then HR business partner role again. Then after that, went to Ahold Delhaize. It's the biggest grocery store you've never heard of, but you have heard of Food Lion, Hannaford, Stop and Shop. They have 385,000 employees worldwide. And then another stint at Home Depot, then at Lowe's, then at Fidelity Investments, and now at my current employer, Edelman Financial Engines. And basically, I oversee the learning, talent, and performance functions for my firm. So, how do we grow our talent? How do we ensure they know where they stand and that they are effective? And then, how do we prepare them for future roles?
I love it. Yeah, variety of roles there that will be interesting.
Yeah.
About. Can you hear us okay, SJ?
She's still on mute. I don't know if she can hear us yet.
SJ. Okay. She's still working out her sound, maybe. So we'll come back to SJ if we can tell she can hear us. No. Okay, she's working it out. In the meantime, what we would like to hear about, and certainly students like interrupt my questions, I'll kind of get us started, but if you have a question and it's something you really want to know, we don't have to go in any specific order. And so, I heard some differences there with like types of firm, different functions within HR. And so if you could spend a couple of minutes outlining, at least for your current role at your current firm, that like day-to-day responsibilities outline, what that looks like in terms of how you spend your time.
Sure. Yeah, as I mentioned, my role is a little different just being in such a small company. That's one of the things I love about it, though, is the opportunity to be involved in such a wide variety of things. So as you can guess, my day-to-day is not set in stone. It's highly variable. But I would say typically my main focus is recruiting, just because that takes, the higher touch with external candidates, a little bit of the relationship management piece there. So my day usually involves meeting with candidates and also strategizing with our internal team leads and hiring managers, about interview feedback, kind of staffing numbers, fit, and what exactly we're looking for. Something I've been working on the last month and will be for the remainder of the year is our annual performance review process. So we have a process where every employee completes a self-review, and then managers go in and complete a manager review and then hold a meeting. So all of the organization and kind of timeline and structure that goes along with that. We also have a lot of international employees at Millennium. It's very common in our industry. So immigration is something that I've been involved with in the last 6 months due to some shifts in our organization. So that's been a really great thing to be involved in. It's been a huge learning curve for me, but that is something I usually have my hands on at least week to week.
Excellent. I'm sorry about you being involved in performance management. That is my world. So with our organization, Alumni Financial Engines, we're 1,500 employees, and we focus on wealth planning for individuals. That's the retail side, and on the business side for businesses. So my role specifically is when you think of an employee life cycle. So you have to do strategic workforce planning to figure out what your workforce does. You then have to hire those individuals. Then once they've been hired, you have to onboard them, set them up around performance, grow them through the development. You may have employee relations issues or not. Then you come around the corner here, you have to reward them for the work that they've done. That's compensation, benefits, et cetera. And then at some point they may exit. So that entire life cycle. So what specifically I have is when the employee comes into the firm, onboarding them effectively, then the whole performance management process, which Molly just kind of outlined, learning and development, and then talent management. So specifically in talent management, we're looking at who our critical talent is and what we need to make differential investments in that talent so they can succeed and hopefully grow with the firm as the firm grows.
Thank you. All right, SJ.
Yeah. Hi, everyone. Sorry, I had some technical issues. So I had to dial in on my phone. I'm SJ Vaughn. I graduated in the MSM program last year. So I'm newly into the HR consulting realm. I am located in DC. However, I'm in Charlotte this weekend. And I work with Aon. So Aon is more on a business to business organization. So while we provide HR services, we are more on the consulting realm, where we work with other organizations and companies to provide and kind of brokerage those HR services. And I work within the healthcare and benefits sector within Aon. So basically my day-to-day task, kind of communicating with my different clients. Right now I'm on 8 different teams and working with both of those organizations, both private and public sector. And right now with open enrollment season going on, I'm helping to communicate with our vendors like Blue Cross, Aetna, all of the healthcare insurance companies to reduce rates for companies to mitigate or like reduce cost for their employees.
Fabulous. Yeah, we have a question. I'm going to pass the mic over so that you can hear.
Thank you all for doing this. My name is Isaiah Little. I'm a double deek and I'm in the MSM program. I was curious to know from everybody, when starting off in entry-level HR roles, should you try to actively seek out more rotational job positions so you get different experiences in different aspects of HR? Or for me personally, I'm really interested in D&I. Should I focus primarily on my area of specialization?
Good question.
So if I can jump in, Molly, if I jump in next. So for us, I would encourage you early in your career to focus on breadth and then depth. The reason being is that HR isn't like what your mom and dad think of HR. They probably got some what's HR. They think of payroll, and they think of training or recruiting, and that's HR has advanced and become so much more sophisticated in that. So even though you want to be in DE&I, ultimately you'll benefit by understanding, if having been in recruiting rotation, for example, how that DE&I filter will play out in recruiting. If you come over to performance management, how we create unconscious processes as it relates to performance management. So I would encourage, if you can get in a rotation program, we offer one, many firms do, jump into that. And then after 1-2 years, you'll have a better sense of the organization and can focus more.
I would echo that. I also found in my first position at Bank of America, just being at a larger organization, I was not in a formalized LDP, but I did have the opportunity to network with other professionals across different teams. So I think even if you're not in a formal program, but you set yourself in a place where you're able to explore different areas of HR, that's definitely something you should take advantage of.
So I'm currently in a early careers program. While it's not rotational, I've been able to work with other early careers employees with Aon that are working in different our other solution lines. And so when I was looking at positions last year, I was deciding whether I want a rotational program. And I think, at least for me, I kind of saw the impact of just an early careers program. And so right now, besides my day-to-day jobs, I'm getting day-to-day work. I'm currently doing a case study and case analysis with other employees within the early careers. So we get to kind of interact with other solution lines, which is great. So whether it's a rotational program or a early careers program, I think those are great to learn other factors and sectors of HR.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, one of the questions that just as a coach I tend to get that I'd love to have your thoughts for the students in the room is, as you're looking for positions, some of the language, the terminology on how to search, right, for those entry level roles. Is there consistency among firms? What are some of the language that is used for your firm or that you've seen for what would be good entry roles?
I love this question. Whenever I do kind of one-off networking calls or informational interviews with students, I usually like to touch on this because it was something I was super confused about when I was looking for jobs out of school. But I definitely think titles such as specialist, coordinator, associate, they might have, recruiting in front of them or benefits in front of them. But typically those kind of three titles are something you really want to narrow in on because I think they typically lend themselves to being more of the entry level, like 1 to 3 years of experience.
I would say that the recruiting game has changed. And so when I was coming out of school, you were told get 100 resumes and expect 99 rejections. That's definitely not the situation now with technology. So you want to set up your job search agents, whether that's on LinkedIn, Indeed. There are a number of like diverse sites too, like Fairy God Boss, etc. And then leverage your network. So definitely work with your career center, identify alumni, reach out to them. And they don't necessarily have to be at your target company, but spend time getting to know them and learning about their organization and finding out from them, hey, do you know anyone who's hiring? Can you put me in contact with anyone who's hiring? My son is a sophomore right now, and he's applying to internships already. And it was like October, and he was already applying for internships in the summer. But when you do apply for a role, part of which changes the use of artificial intelligence to screen out candidates. So you want to make sure that your resume, don't just write one resume and send that out to everybody. You want to try and customize your resume to that job posting. So if they use the word development, use the word development. If they use the word learning, use the word learning. Try and make sure that as close to the match as possible, because the recruiter is going to get hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of applications, and the technology will screen out and say, these are the best, start with these. So you want to improve your chances. But the best way to ultimately improve your chances is to network and learn and know the hiring manager. Because if you can reach out to a person at that company directly, and that person can advocate on your behalf, that will definitely improve your chances.
And something to add is kind of, I know for Aon specifically, is that the applications itself were regional based. So when you're applying to a certain company, double check and just make sure that you understand where you're applying to and how the company itself structures its locations. So you may be applying down south, but that may also include all the way up to DC. So just a heads up for that, another tidbit.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, trying to understand the structure so that you can get to the right people. And I love that it was a question about applications and networking came in, right? I saw some smiles because they're like, Cheryl, you've told me that before. We have another question.
So Grant, you brought up the point of basically targeting companies, and I was just kind of curious to know from all of you, you're all have experience working HR and financial services, and you can work HR in pretty much any industry. How do you kind of navigate determining the ideal industries you want to target for HR roles, especially within the current economy where like the job market is pretty difficult?
I kind of fell into this because I started in consulting, and the advantage of being in consulting is you have lots of clients in a lot of different industries. And then given my geographic location, Charlotte, financial services is big here. But what I would encourage you to do is what interests you. So are you into technology? Do you find consumables, fascinating? Are you into renewable energy? So what floats your boat? am a big believer in financial independence, and people come to me for financial advice, and so that's why I tend to gravitate towards financial services firms. I'm actually leaving my current organization to go to a new organization, and they do renewable energy, and partly that is because of a passion of mine in that sphere. But I would say, what industries are exciting to you, and know that where you start isn't necessarily where you're going to finish. You may switch industries throughout your career. I did. I've been in 3 different industries. I'll be starting a 4th industry here now, and that's would be my advice.
Thank you. This is where the mic is. Can you guys hear me? Hi, my name is Riva. I'm part of the MSM program, and I just had a question about so when I'm applying to jobs and I'm looking at HR roles, they do prefer that you have prior experience with human capital management, human resource information systems. What are some of the softwares you recommend we kind of gain a little background on before going into those roles, or is that even necessary?
So if I could just jump into, so if you look at HR and you divide it into here's a pie divided into thirds. 1/3 of it is HR business partners and journalists. So the other third is kind of specialists. So I'm in the specialist group. And then the final third is something that's definitely been emerging over the last several years, which is HR operations and systems. So you think of HR as a business. HR continues to need to deliver our services more efficiently and more effectively, and we need technology to do that. So in terms of their number, it's a very fractured industry. Workday is big at many big companies. But what I guess I would encourage you more is you kind of do networking, find out what they use and why. Because when you join a company, you're not gonna have much of a choice. It's this is what we use. But at least if you know more about it, so Cornerstone or PeopleSoft, which is the old legacy thing that was big back in the 90s, that at least you can be more fluent in some of these technologies and why different companies use them.
Yeah, I certainly think as it relates to applying and interviewing, if you've been able to have any exposure in internships or shadowing, even just seeing for a day someone navigate Workday or navigate the payroll system, you may not have months of experience using that system yourself, but being able to demonstrate your interest in that and your basic understanding of the systems, I do think is really key to kind of show during interviews and applications. So I would definitely list any exposure that you've had to any sort of HR system on your resume.
There's also you can get an associate HR. I think it's through SHRM, but it's basically without having any background or years of experience working in HR. That was something that I had looked at getting before I started in the MSM program, and I highly recommend it if you see yourself wanting to be a HR business leader, as it incorporates all of those factors that Grant had mentioned of HR. So that's a really good one if you're interested in getting those licensings. I also would say that, at least for me, I was looking at more high level or consulting jobs in HR. And for me, I didn't really see it's, again, you can either be specialty or you can be more generalist. And at least for me, I wanted more of that specialty experience at first. And what I love about my company is that because we have multiple solution lines, I can always learn about the wealth side or about the compensation side. And so that's always an option as well. It's just overall, if you want to go into HR, you want to be someone that wants to continually learn and open to learning.
Yeah, that continuing learning. And on that, so we have Coursera. A lot of universities also have Coursera. The advantage that you have that I didn't have is you could literally do some initial training on something. So hypothetically, say you didn't know PowerPoint and the company uses PowerPoint a lot. and you find out from somebody. You can actually jump on Coursera or YouTube or other platforms and do a quick intro to that. So you don't know what Workday is. Maybe this is the first time you've ever heard of Workday. You can jump on to their site, see a quick demo. You can jump on YouTube, other things. So there's a lot of resources that you have that will help you prepare and will help you stand out from other candidates, because you can speak to more specifics than they can if they didn't do the research.
Awesome. Thank you so much. My name's Max Lefebvre. I'm also in the MSM program. And I just had another question, kind of to finish off, like maybe more emotionally based. What is your favorite like part of the HR job? Maybe just for your specific role or just HR in general? Like, what's your favorite part of it? What kind of gets you out of the bed in the morning to keep showing up to work every day?
Yeah, but I think we may have just lost SJ there.
Yeah, it just kicked me off.
Okay. Do you want to answer that first, or you want to have us go and you can get back on?
I'll get back on. Hold on.
All right,
I'll keep
great.
going.
Molly, you want to go? Or you want me to go?
You can go ahead.
I think honestly that answer has changed over time. And, I mentioned I've been in HR business partner roles. I've been in specialist roles. I think when I was in HR business partner role, because people ask me like, what's the difference between the two? And when I summarize it, I would say the HRBP role is more about EQ, emotional intelligence, and the COE role is more about IQ. So both are very important, but both are very different. So in the HRBP role, you may have 100 things on your to-do list, and an ER issue pops up, and now suddenly you have to prioritize that over all these other things. You're at the seat of the table with the business, which is really exciting. But oftentimes a lot of what you're doing is guiding the organization. So not only to make the right decision, but also to avoid the wrong decision. And if you're familiar with StrengthsFinder, some people have a relator as a strength, and they really like that HRBP role because of that. I liked it, but what I found, what got me out of bed more, is I love to create, I love to innovate. I like thinking about what the organizational challenges are, and then how do we take learning, talent, and performance to solve those challenges. So setting up a new learning program. Next year, we're going to focus on managers, and so have a big focus on manager development and growth. So to me, that's what floats my boat. Is at the end of the day, I can feel like I have created something, I can see the impact of what I created, and I have more control over that.
I would, mine would land very similarly about kind of organizational development and just feeling like you made an impact on growth in the organization. My situation is a little different being at such a small company, but I really feel a connection, every time we bring in new employees and onboard them and think about future numbers and planning, and feeling like my role and my manager's role in HR really helped that strategy and helped drive what our company will become in 5 years and 10 years down the road, even if neither of us are here at that time. Just feeling like you had an impact. I think with recruiting specifically, I have always felt that kind of like personal connection to helping people, whether it's working through relocation or getting certain certifications, adapting to a new industry. I also think something else that makes me really passionate about my job is being able to feel so close to different job roles that I never will have, but I work alongside the trading floor. So I see quants and traders every day and interact with these people who have totally different backgrounds than myself. So that kind of goes into what we were saying earlier about kind of strategically picking an industry that's of interest to you and that you're going to enjoy down the road.
Yeah. I think an important question asked is also, what do you don't like? And what are the things that drain you of energy? I mentioned StrengthsFinder. So a strength is not necessarily something you're good at. It's actually something you're good at and gives you energy. I'm really good at Excel, and I started my early career in analytical HR jobs, but it doesn't give me energy. It drains me. I quickly learned that while I'm good at compensation, and while that was providing me actually very excellent career growth, and I was being paid very well relative to other people my age, it wasn't what ultimately kind of filled me up at the end of the day. So I think it's important to have the awareness of what are those things that drain you, and then trying to focus on roles that maximize the great things and minimize the not so great things, even if you may be good at it.
Yeah, I think those are some good answers. I would say what I have enjoyed about working within the health and benefits sector is the impact that I have on healthcare. Being able to learn about health insurance and reduce costs, but also impact the lives of employees that obviously I don't get to meet or like see one-on-one, but being able to impact multiple different companies and organizations. So I work both within government sector clients as well as some small law firms. So it's been great to, I guess, get to see like the impact both for cost savings, but also for improved medical advances.
Hi, my name is Nazra. I'm an undergrad here at Wake. This past summer, I did an internship with a small human resources consulting firm. And I really enjoyed, getting to learn about everybody's position and, the different sectors of HR. But I left thinking that I was going to, after I graduate, go get a master's in like human resource management. For those of you who did the MSM program, I'm sort of wondering why or what made you lean more towards that rather than, going to a specific program at like a different school.
Sorry, just to repeat the question, it's wondering why we chose the MSM program versus an HR specific master's program. Okay. Yeah, I would say coming out of undergrad, I definitely had a very strong interest in HR, and I knew that that was one of my top areas. But what attracted me to the MSM program was that it was broader, and that if I went through a semester there and was exposed to another career path, that I had the opportunity to kind of see that through, or kind of change my direction, which I didn't end up doing. But I personally thought that kind of the broader, the better. I'm sure that HR master's programs are very beneficial and specific, but when I went through my decision of choosing that program, I just felt that something more general would be best for me down the road, if I ever were to change, industries or change careers.
And to piggyback off of that, I was also in the same boat of deciding whether to do the MSM program or an HR master's program. And from talking to people both in HR as well as just business in general, I saw that there was, when it comes to getting jobs as well as like a career in HR, receiving like your HR master's is great, but it's not completely needed. And so what I saw with that as well is that each company has, as much like similar HR can be, each company kind of has its own way of doing HR. And so by getting your master's in HR, you learn a certain understanding. And obviously I can't completely talk about that since I didn't get my master's in HR. But I felt as though, again, like getting my MSM degree, I was more likely to have, again, that like general understanding and greater understanding of business rather than an HR master's program, which could help me receive a job because of that background, but maybe not advance me forward in my career.
Yeah, I honestly think it comes down to a personal choice. So I had an intern and she was getting her master's degree. Her name is Cameron McDonald, and she now has a stellar career at Duke Power and leads all of talent management and talent acquisition. So you definitely can have a fantastic career in HR with that degree. For myself, what it came down to was I was always told get work experience before you go back and get your master's degree, because an idea is only as good as its implementation. So you may have a great idea that you learned or best practice here in college, but the reality is that may not be a great idea in that business context. So knowing the business context really helps. So like when I went back and got my MBA, it really did help me, because then I can apply those ideas into a context of business. The reason why I did an MBA instead of a master's in HR was I did talk to a lot of leaders, and it was 50-50 split. Why I decided the MBA was that they said, Grant, eventually you want to be a senior leader in HR. You're going to be talking to senior leaders in the business. You need to be able to talk their language, and their language is business terminology, business numbers. So, if you get the master's in HR, that's great, but you're still going to need to figure out how to translate that into business. Whereas you get the MBA, that, you already have the HR stuff, and that'll help you with that.
You, that was super helpful.
I'll come back to the two of you. We'll do the two of yours in a row.
Hi, I'm Addison Berry. I'm a senior at Wake Forest this year. And Molly, I'm an English major that's also studying Spanish. So very similar, like undergrad degree. And during my internship this past summer, I got to know a lot of the HR team where I was working, and just found that was really interested in what they were doing. And so now I'm really considering that as a degree, as a career going forward. I know you did the MSM program, and honestly, I think any of you guys can answer this. So as you're looking at applicants, if you guys working in recruiting, as you see applicants come through, do you think that business side or business experience is really essential, or are there a lot of other qualities that could also outweigh that when you're looking kind of overall at an applicant?
Yeah, I think from a recruiting perspective, kind of going into your first job, I don't think a master's degree is necessary at all. It was something I personally wanted to do, but it's definitely not going to hold you back. I think it's more so how you create your story and kind of your elevator pitch about where your interest comes from in HR and what you want to do. I also think the liberal arts background, it's very common among people who end up in HR. So I definitely wouldn't, worry that you're not in finance or an HR specific degree, because I really think as long as you can kind of go off of your experience and tell your story and show your interest, that you'll be a really great candidate for whatever you're applying for.
I lead career management and have at a couple of Fortune 500 companies, and I'll study the careers of our leaders in the organization. And what you'll find is that there is not a strong correlation between undergraduate degrees and roles, like you think you would, but that's actually doesn't always play out. Master's degree there is definitely a stronger correlation. So anyway, all that to say is for entry level roles, master's degree is preferred. It's desirable, but it's not required. So it all really comes down to who else is applying. And when I'm looking at candidates, what I'm looking for is their capabilities and their potential. And that's kind of hard to translate into a resume. But I'll tell you a very, very quick story. During the financial meltdown, 2008, 2009, financial services was just decimated. So I was at Wells Fargo. We got forced into sale with, as a Wachovia, we got forced into sale with Wells Fargo. I was on a team of 68 people. Only 6 people were retained. The rest of us were all laid off. So I am applying and competing against candidates who have more experience than me, better experience than me, or at a minimum similar experience as me. I was able to land at TIA in a higher paying job, but in a role which was DE&I, even though I did not have a background in DE&I. So I was competing against people who had, years of experience leading DE&I, yet they hired me. The reason why is because there were 3 people who knew the hiring manager. One of them was in my MBA program, and I was mentoring this person. One of them was in my class, and she was like, Grant, definitely, I'll reach out. And then one of them was one of the 6 people that was retained and said, I'll reach out. All 3 of them said, you got to talk to Grant. He's good. And as a result of that, it got me an interview where probably the recruiter would have screened me out altogether. So I share that story to say that, yeah, it's great to have credentials. It's great to have a master's degree, but ultimately your initiative is what's going to pay off the most.
Did a little dance because I think that's great advice.
Yeah, so leverage other people's credibility is the lesson there. The hiring manager didn't know me from anybody, but knew those 3 people and respected those 3 people. And because those 3 people referred me, she took the chance to talk to me.
Hi, I'm Rachel Good. I'm kind of a good piggyback question off of that. So I'm also kind of an oddball out here in that I don't have an educational background in business. I'm doing my master's in psychology right now. And then on the side, I'm also a human resources officer in the Army Reserves. And so with that being said, like kind of what advice do you have for pitching yourself with this kind of background in terms of making sure you actually like demonstrate good experience? And I know like the Army Reserves is probably going to be a niche organization in terms of its functions and systems that it uses. So,
yeah.
General
So at Lowe's, I used to lead a team of IO psychologists, so I know their value. And so I definitely think even if your background isn't IO psychology, psychology is interwoven across HR. And I think it's definitely seen as a positive field to be in. And most job descriptions would say, preferred psychology or something like that. Army Reservists, I also think is great. So many companies, pretty much all that I have been at, we really want to strongly support diversity, equity, and inclusion. And most of those companies have what are called employee resource groups, ERGs, or business resource groups, BRGs. And typically there's a military related one. So we do events, that's Valor is the name of our ERG. And we specifically do things for our veterans and try to hire veterans, et cetera. So advice that I would give you is, say you were interviewing with an Edelman or another firm, find out if they have an employee resource group, find out if they have a military employee resource group, try and identify individuals there through LinkedIn, and then reach out to them and say, hey, I'd like to learn more about Bank of America or whatever company it is that you want to interview at, and start to make connections and network. And then definitely if you're currently an officer, leverage alumni who you know directly.
Thank you.
My name is Cameron French. I'm also a double deek, and I'm doing the MSM program right now. So this question is kind of oriented to those who did the MSM program. But as you look to interview and like kind of network, how did you leverage your experiences from the program to kind of better present yourself as a candidate for the HR job that you have now?
So I can start off with this since it's so fresh in my head. The big thing that I did was being able to meet with Cheryl and Sharon. Cheryl can tell you I met with her maybe once, maybe twice a week to kind of talk through what I have done thus far in the MSM program to help me do really well in my interviews. And so I was able to kind of come up both with like powerful statements that I would be able to expand on to tell those stories about the different projects. I knew at the time, kind of in November, December, that I was looking more into the HR brokerage consulting firm. So when it came to my spring project, GCP project, I decided to go and do it within insurance. And so as right now, I would kind of think about what you're looking at, what companies you're interested in, and maybe obviously if that company is within the GCP, that's great. But if it's not, kind of maybe near or similar like realm of project it would be. I also kind of would summarize again like what I was doing and having informational interviews with people in different jobs and companies and different roles to kind of understand what they did day to day, so then I could apply that to what I had been doing in my classes to again have those stories to find and like pinpoint exactly a reason why I deserved that position. So I knew when it came down to my final rounds with Aon, the questions that they were asking me about when it came to healthcare, I don't have a background in healthcare, but understanding benefits and insurance, I did because of my GCP project. But really they wanted to know how I worked with a team and how I worked with others, communicated, as well as project management and efficiency. So I was able to show that through my GCP project, as well as my other classwork. So being able to summarize everything that you've done thus far, both in your MSN program, but also just in undergrad, to apply that to those interview questions.
Yeah, I think SJ covered everything, kind of, tailoring your coursework as much as you can to set yourself up well for talking points with whatever, career path you're going to choose to take. I don't think we were allowed to choose our ALP or GCP was called something different when I was there. But even still, mine was fairly unrelated to HR, but just having more of that kind of like internship, kind of consulting experience while being a student was great. I also think with interviews, the biggest thing is just repetition and getting really comfortable with your stories. So, Wake has amazing resources with the Career Center where you can do mock interviews or, go over your strengths with your career counselor. So definitely really maximize those opportunities. And I just think the more you talk about it, even, in your informational interviews, you can think of it like an interview, kind of giving your resume background and explaining where you want to go. I've learned through my current role working in HR that interviews are a lot more conversational than I thought they were. When I was a student, I was kind of, really worried about having that prescribed answer. And I've realized over the past few years, talking to people with much more experience than me, that it's actually very easy to just be, genuine and just kind of voice your interests and be strategic about what areas you're going to like let shine through.
Thank you. I appreciate that. So, my question is kind of a piggyback off of like Max's earlier question. You talked about like your passions and why you were drawn to HR, and I was really curious to know from all of you, can you give like a particular moment where either you or like the people in your team or division helped to reshape organizational culture and like workplace environment and like impacted like the people that work at your company for the better?
Be hard to narrow down one story there. We do an employee pulse survey, employee engagement survey. So that's 2 times per year. And as part of our mid-year review process, I ask every employee a question on what engages them most, and then there's a list that they pick from. So we're constantly trying to, operate HR like a business, and our employees are our customers, and managers are our customers. So we're trying to get a pulse on where they are. And engagement drives results. So it's very important that we focus on engagement. So let's see. One that recently occurred was in the last year's mid-year. Employees said that they wanted more support for growth and advancement, and that they also wanted better support around career growth in particular. So we did a pilot targeting individuals that was around career growth. So it's like, how do you help grow your career at our firm? And we launched a pilot on that. That went really well. The one that got more airplay though is we literally I looked at all the learning vendors that we had. We changed vendors, we brought in Coursera, and we introduced a performance goal for all employees. It's called 23 and 23. And that was that all employees, we want you to have 23 hours of development in the year 2023. The reason why was because employees felt like they always had to pick their job over their development. And so what we were trying to say is, no, your development is your job. That's part of your job. Your company can't grow if you're not growing. So we want to give you permission, and we want your managers to be holding you accountable to actually growing. And so that was 23 and 23.
My example would be in the last year, we've hired about 25 people globally, which I think we have an official headcount of 94 now. So it's been massive growth. But in 2021, when I first started here, we unfortunately had a lot of turnover just for various reasons, people making, different lifestyle choices kind of coming out of COVID, and a couple people relocating. And I definitely saw our company kind of stoop to a pretty low morale. And in our industry, trading, it's very much like a team sport. You want to have higher energy. You want to feel like the people around you, are wanting to be there and just as committed to making money for the company as you are. So really my boss and I worked for about 18 months to finally achieve this 25 hires number that we got to kind of across every team. But I really feel like in the past 6 months since onboarding all of these new hires, I've noticed like such a difference in the morale around the floor and around the office. And now it feels like we're on this, precipice of much bigger growth. And so that was something personal for me because, I kind of felt the emotions along with the rest of the employees going through this massive hiring process. So it definitely feels really good to have that checked off the list and actually be able to see the positive impacts day to day.
So Aon's a huge global company. So because I started in June, I haven't really been able to see my own impact too much, but I would say I'm part of what we call the CARES committee, which is kind of like a social committee that also does service within the DC, Maryland, and Virginia areas. And so this past week, we went to Potomac High School, and there's like a few other high schools that are doing this. It's junior achievement, but it's within high schools that they get to learn about business and get to do case competitions. So they're actually partnering with Aon, and getting to be a coach this past week has been really cool to talk to freshmen in high school about what Aon provides. And obviously it's very different than if I was working for like more of a brick and mortar store, and having to explain to high schoolers what a business to business organization is, has not only challenged myself, but it shows that the future leadership in these high schoolers would be great. And I think being able to like spend time giving to like the community of DC. Obviously, my like Aon itself is in multiple different countries, and it's not just central to DC, but the DC, Richmond, and our other Baltimore areas, our eastern region, have been able to do like nonprofit and just like service work, which has been great to see that impact in the community.
Thank you. Love the stories.
So we have 5 minutes remaining. I love all of the questions. I think they've been fantastic, and better questions than I had written down here. So that's great. One of the things that I feel like it's sort of inherent to the process, and this will kind of be our final question, is as you have continued in your careers, how have you, or what advice would you give to people who may be struggling with the stress of uncertainty and change, right? Because that's inherent to the career process, and we try to talk about it, but it's a tough thing. And so any advice you have, either that you've utilized in your job or that you utilized in your job search on this process of figuring it out, but the stress that comes along with that.
I think for me, as someone that gains energy from others, as an extrovert, being remote is an adjustment. And then also I tend to be someone who restorative is one of my strengths, and meaning that I like to get involved and solve problems. And so being in a remote environment for me is definitely been a challenge, because it's like, it's too easy for me to say yes. And it's harder for me to turn off work, because at least when I was physically at the office, I get in my car and I commuted, and that helped me transition to being home. Whereas now, it's like home is here, but work is also right here. And it's easy for me to just like step in here and quickly do an email. So I think the advice I would give is know yourself, know what you need to do for your own mental health, try and create some routine. So we have a dog, and me walking my dog helps put just some boundaries in my day that help me get outside, get mental relief, and do that on a consistent and regular basis. I'm taking better care of my body. So that's what I would say, as far as is invest in yourself and create structure for yourself.
I would say on the job search uncertainty, I remember that feeling very well still. It's not a comfortable place to be at all, especially coming out of school when you know how much potential you have and what you would like to do, but in reality, you haven't, sat in a full-time position for more than, an internship span of time. So I would just try to remember that whatever your first job is, even if it's not perfect, you're going to learn so much just from basic, communication, going to meetings. Even if you end up hating your first job, you will learn something from it and be able to build on that. So just thinking of every experience as, a learning opportunity. And also, I think we're in a really unique job market right now for young people. Gone are the days where you need to commit to one company for 20 plus years. I think, if you find a place where you're comfortable and you see growth internally, that's fantastic. But also, today's world, we have so many great opportunities. Nobody is going to raise an eyebrow if you're, applying to a new role after a year. So always keep that in mind and kind of keep your ear to the ground with, contacts once you do kind of get into that first role. So always kind of stay curious and keep learning.
I would call myself of last year this time to relax. Cheryl definitely told me this a lot, but to relax and it will all work out. Hard work really does pay off. I think your connections on LinkedIn and applications are extremely important. But also remember to enjoy and have fun. Because when you start your job, you can't really turn back around. So enjoy your free time while it lasts. But those are like the big ones. Just everything will work out as long as you work hard, and enjoy the ride for right now.
Fabulous. Okay, so I want to be thoughtful about your time. It is 1:30. What I will ask, and I know it's tough for people that are on Zoom in terms of the way this classroom is. I'm gonna just ask our students to come up to the classroom, like the top, so that we can thank our panelists. We're just gonna clap when they can actually see us. Because they haven't actually like seen your faces or anything.
Maybe we do a
So
quick screenshot. That'd be great too. We'll do that.
So we appreciate
Okay.
it. Let's give a quick wave. Thank you so much for your time. Really helpful, and props to your students for really, really good questions. I hope this was helpful. Thank you, panelists. Very appreciative. Hopefully you have some time to fit some lunch in here post Zoom meeting. So thank you again. Take care.
Thanks so much. Good luck, everyone. Bye.